Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Climbing Sycamores podcast, where we look at today's topics to get a better view of Christianity. I'm Annie Beege, and I'm joined by my friends Ben Sadler and Matt Harbach.
Bring it.
Hey, guys, I have a question. So last night, I kind of at a whim went to go see a concert at the Rave. It's a pop punk concert. It was kind of in one of the smaller rooms of the Rave. And it was Knuckle Puck and Real Friends. It was pop punk music. Yes.
Is Knuckle Puck named after the Mighty Ducks when he would hit the shot, the Knuckle Puck shot? Do you know this shot?
It's possible.
Okay.
It's possible. Pop punk bands like to do that type of stuff.
All right.
Think like Fall Out Boy, and that was from The Simpsons and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, they're both from Illinois, I believe, and so they're up here, and so I'm enjoying the concert. It's great, but then like this mosh pit ensues, and it's pop punk music. Like this is not like deathcore or like heavy metal, and so I'm just trying to mind my business and I'm getting jostled around.
Were you in the mosh pit?
No, I ran out because it kind of
started
formed
around you.
Yeah, it kind of
You were
formed.
mosh
and then,
adjacent.
yes, it was mosh adjacent. Yes, and I wanted out, but then I'm
Did
like,
Dave start the mosh pit?
Dave was in the mosh pit.
Did he like it?
He does. He used to do. That was his thing. I'm like, you're 40.
You're going to get injured.
You're going to get injured.
And you're not
Part
going
of
to work.
the point of the concert, though, is that you get to live a scenario that you don't usually get to live. So it doesn't matter how old you are.
Is that what that is? Why are we?
So
doing
your
this?
question is why do this?
Like, what is the appeal? I don't
think
want to be
it's
jostled.
cathartic. It's cathartic. It's a release of man's propensity to inflict violence on his fellow man.
Join a gym. I don't know. Go on a I don't know. Join MMA. I don't know. Go kickboxing. Run on the treadmill if you've got all that energy. I don't know.
So you
I just
didn't
remember-
appreciate being jostled.
now,
No.
was Green Day the first one to do that, or was that going on before?
I'm sure it's been around. I don't know.
Because I just remember, I think I was in grade school, kind of when Green Day hit their really big. I think 7th, 8th grade.
Yep.
And I think my cousin went to one of the concerts, and like people were going to the hospital because they were really moshing it up. A lot of
I think the
mosh.
culture has evolved at least somewhat. I noticed when somebody would fall, everybody would kind of like rush around to help them up.
Okay.
You know, if
And
somebody
then knock them down again.
correct, and
Yeah.
then but like kind of everybody kind of like chilled out for a second, and grabbed them up, and then it went right back. Or if somebody dropped like say their glasses or their phone or something, then the customary practice is to grab the item and hold it up in the air, so that it can be found by its owner or get
It's a
reconnected.
kinder, gentler mosh pit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like with
Grown-up
rule-
mosh pit.
It's a half mosh.
with rules and
Yeah.
and norms and laws.
I think it's just boys who never grew up.
There
And
was
they want.
girls in there too.
Oh, okay, never mind.
It was not me though. I see, and for me, and listen, I'm not going to write a letter or anything, but it's distracting to me as a Why is this funny?
Write a letter. That's funny.
Fine,
whom it
send an
may
email.
concern,
Yeah, right.
colon.
Fine, I will not send an email or
It's very mom of you.
yeah, right, right. But I'm not going to do. But I'm also like, dude, like I just want to watch the band at a reasonable distance and not have to worry about like getting plowed
Moshed.
over. Yeah,
So the gals were in there
some of them, yeah.
body checking.
And then there was this like 300-pound guy, and I'm like, you need to settle down, bro.
Oh,
like
boy.
somebody actually had to talk to him, like, bro, you are like taking it like out of control. You're too big.
He's just
And-
got a lot of momentum.
Well, join a gym. I don't know.
I think we would goof around doing that in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But that was 25 years ago. So, yeah.
So anywho,
No
it was a
comments.
great show. Yeah.
When is it appropriate to mosh?
I think whenever the music starts getting rowdy, but then I felt like there were some slower songs and people were just doing it. I'm like, this is just inconsistent. I don't understand.
So you think the music never reached an appropriate level
I think
where
it did,
moshing
sometimes.
was warranted?
Sometimes.
But even when it was, you shouldn't be moshing.
Right. And then at one point the lead singer of Real Friends, he comes down and he's like trying to tell everybody to like make away from him, and he comes into the middle of the floor. Nobody touches him. Right? We've all got our phones out though. I'm like 2-3 feet from him, like maybe a little more, 5 feet. And everybody all of a sudden, is just really, really well behaved all of a sudden.
He's
That's
like
good.
Moses.
Yeah, he
Part of the
literally
sea.
did. He
Parting
really
the
did.
Sea of Mosh.
Yes. And then
Well,
they run
that's-
around in a circle, and I'm like, what? You look like cattle.
That's at least nobody got hurt. I mean, I think that's what was the crazy. I remember Green Day, like they would storm the stage and
Yes.
push people. I think, there were some deaths there in some of those concerts. And
Woodstock 99.
yeah, at any rate.
Anyway, that was last night. So,
You seem like you got out unscathed, though.
yeah. Oh, yeah, because I didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I took
Who
my
would you
stance.
send the letter to?
I don't know. That was my point. Is like, I'm not going to write a letter because I don't want to disrupt their concert going experience. Like, that's somebody else's, like, that's how they want to enjoy and appreciate the concert. But I don't want to enjoy and appreciate the concert that way. And like, the band probably likes it because it's really high energy. So they probably feed off of like the moshing. Oh, and right when we walked into the rave too, they handed us a little ticket. We got yellow carded with a ticket saying no moshing.
Oh,
So they're even breaking the rules.
Yeah.
wow. And that's I bet they do that knowing people are going to break the rules because it's just that much more fun.
Or it's liable, like it's reducing liability.
that.
Or I wasn't going to mosh, but now I'm definitely going to
Now I'm
mosh.
done.
After I got this card.
So it was a good time though. Great bands like that music. It's very fun.
Cool.
On to more serious subjects.
Yeah. Annie, you brought up another topic. What did you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about when is it appropriate, or I don't know, maybe appropriate's the wrong word. When is it justifiable to care what other people think?
Or when is it justifiable to care or to not care? That's what you mean?
Either way, yeah. I mean, like when should you? If somebody's saying something to you about you, when should you care? When should you take it to heart?
Not when you're moshing, that's for sure.
No. When should you just dismiss the feelings and just go on with your life? And the reason this came up is because I have a friend who is kind of highly visible in the music community. He's got a lot of responsibility and he books a bunch of venues, and the venues have expectations for the bands that come in, and the expectations are set, and sometimes when they're not adhered to, the kind of, the venue and therefore my friend has to kind of put his foot down. And that's resulted in cancellations and reschedulings and things like that. And so the bands and some of the people in the community are like mad, and they're back talking him, and they're talking about him, and going to the owner of the venues and things like that. And so he's getting really bent about it. And he's, saying basically, he's like, well, I guess I'm the bad guy again. I'm always made out to be the bad guy. And well, not oh well. He's actually rather upset about it. And I said, dude, like you're in this position, you're going to upset people. And so I'm like, if you're conducting business fairly, I dropped the old wise as serpents, innocent as doves line on him. I'm like, if you can be shrewd and you can also be patient and understanding and accommodating, you can do both of those things. And if you're doing those things, you should have a clear conscience and you shouldn't worry about what other people are saying.
Right.
That's on them. They don't get to define whether or not you're the bad guy. Like if you're doing everything and controlling you and controlling your behavior and your actions, if other people have a problem with it and you're doing the right thing, that's on them. Is that good advice? Is that a good time to not care what other people? And his bugaboo is that they're running around talking to other people in the community. And I'm like, well, let your reputation precede itself then.
Yeah. Does he know that? How much are they running around talking about
Well,
it?
he knows flat out that they've gone to some of the owners of the venues.
Okay.
Okay. And so.
And you brought up before we started talking, there's extremes here, right? Where if you don't care about what anyone says,
right,
and you just kind of bulldoze people over and, hey, this is my way or the highway.
Right.
And then there's another extreme of people pleasing where you're so malleable. Whatever anybody says, you change everything based on anybody's opinion all the time. So what do you think, Matt?
I think personally, I'm like, extremely either self-aware or self-reflective all the time. And so I usually, like, if someone were to say something to me, like, I rarely find myself flying off the handle or like speaking out of turn or saying something and then
I'd actually like to see you fly off the handle, see what that would look like.
Yeah, it's not often. I usually don't have like foot in mouth moments.
Yeah.
I do sometimes and they're hilarious, but like usually they're just goofy, but I never like usually get that angry at people and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so when people like come and tell me something, like I feel like I can think about it, mm-hmm. and like I've probably already thought about it, before mm-hmm. the person confronts me, but I can usually think about it and I can usually like see their point. Mm-hmm. But I don't really apologize for things if I don't think I did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. I think that's a misuse of an apology, And one of my problems is like, well, I guess it's not a problem. It's just a pet peeve is when, people will, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, you're not. You're not, you didn't do anything wrong. Don't apologize for every last little tiny thing, and some people, I feel like that's a misuse of an apology.
But what if what you said offended somebody or they took it as an attack where you didn't mean it as attack and they, they thought you were questioning their judgment or questioning who they are. And so, apologizing, you don't want to be passive aggressive. Like, I'm sorry, that's how that made you feel. But the idea, like if the perception is reality for them, so I'm thinking about this, like, if the relationship is the goal, if your goal is to keep that relationship, you might have to apologize, even though you're not. I think
weak goals. My goal is to be right.
Okay. See that? I think that's. There's a couple different scenarios that I'm thinking about where each one is a little bit different. Where I know of a congregation that the pastor had this view of what he wanted to do, and he just went in there with his own agenda and gutted the whole church basically because everyone was like, whoa, what happened? Changed everything so fast and didn't visit the people and just did his own thing. And now and everybody left. Mm. And, he'll say, well, this is the vision and we're going to reach more people. And it's more, this is what's important. And so I'm not going to apologize because, either you get on board or you get out of the way. And, so I think what is your goal is a big deal. Are there people that need to be confronted, and do you need to speak the truth even if they're going to be offended? That's one thing. Is the goal repairing the relationship? Because, and so you have to weigh those things. I was, as we were preparing for this, I was thinking about what Jesus' concern with the religious leaders of the day, the Pharisees, who he just kind of hauled off and went off on them. He said, this is in Luke chapter 11, he says, now you then, you Pharisees, clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you're full of greed and wickedness. You foolish people. Woe to you Pharisees, because you give a tenth of your mint and rue and all kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. In other words, you tithe from your spice rack, but you don't do the big things. Woe to you Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplace. Woe to you, because you are like unmarked graves, which people walk over without knowing it.
Dang.
And then, that's Jesus.
Jesus snapped.
And then it goes, one of the experts in the law answered him, Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us also. And then Jesus replied, and you experts of the law, woe to you. And he goes on and on. You're like, you're right, I offended you, and I have to. So Jesus, in that case, he was not so concerned about repairing any relationship, or he saw how they were hurting the people, how they were controlling the people, giving them heavy burdens. They were being arrogant. They were just caring about themselves. So I think that's one of the big keys is, are these people hurting somebody? And do you need to speak the truth in love to protect people, do they need to be called out? That's a time where you really do need to speak the truth, even if you offend somebody. That's tough if it's in a business situation where the relationship is really important. And I heard one counselor say this. I think it was Karen Fisher, who's worked here before. She said, "You could be right, or you could get what you want." And so you might be right that these people have all the problems and they're not following the procedures, but do you want to get what you want, or do you want to repair the relationship? And so if relationship is key, you might have to talk to somebody and try to see how you could repair the relationship without bending over, bending over backwards necessarily.
I was gonna say, like, I don't have a lot of experience in that situation. I think sometimes, like, if I'm talking to somebody, like, I can sense if they're taking something I'm saying the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
If they suddenly get defensive, and I'll be like, I didn't mean to, So sometimes I can, like, figure it out in the conversation, and I can backtrack and be like, no, I didn't mean that. I meant that and this or that instead. Otherwise, people don't really confront me either, though, and maybe they walk away hurt and don't tell me. You wanna?
I could start if you want. Just get some practice.
Okay.
I don't think I'm good at that either, so I don't know if I even know
Look
how to
on my
confront
Calendly. We'll see if we can squeeze you in.
Okay. I mean, in a business situation, I think you also have another thing to evaluate. Are these the kind of customers I want to be serving? If that's not really your customer base, like, all right, you are making demands and you're going to be a difficult customer for me over and over again. I don't think this is going to be a good working relationship. I think that's another question to ask. And like you said, if they're talking bad about you, but other people have had good experiences, they will consider the source. So I hope
so. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think, I guess if I were to put myself in my friend's shoes, I mean, and listen, it happens here at church too.
Yeah.
It's like, we're doing songs and we're doing this and that. And I get suggestions all the time about, what songs we should do and when we shouldn't do certain songs. And, and I take the opinion and I think about it and I don't always agree with it, but then I go about my business. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of say, okay, well, if you're not going to please everybody.
Correct.
And if you are, taking suggestions kindly and trying to accommodate and being fair and balanced, then you really shouldn't have anything to worry about, because at what point are you the problem, and at what point is the other party the problem?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's how I feel with my friend, where it's like, and I told him, if your conscience is clear, and again, we talked how that could be dangerous because there are some people who, have
a hard heart.
Correct. Who think that their conscience is clear. But I said, reassess what you're doing and how you're treating people and all that. Like, continually reassess that. And if you're comfortable, overall,
right,
relatively, with how you're handling business and you're being fair and obviously you're not taking money and you're treating people well, then who cares what they have to say? And it's because they didn't adhere to the expectation, and then you had to. Yeah. It's like having a child, right? Like, you warn the child X is going to happen if you do Y, and then they do Y, and then X happens. It's just very.
Now that's a very important piece of information. Like, all right, this was the expectation. Yes. You didn't meet the expectation. Now.
Now we have to cancel or reschedule or work around and da da da.
Yeah, that's a very different.
Correct. And so as a result of that.
Yeah.
This other party, went to the owner of the venue and has been talking amongst the community. And
I know that happens with schools too. This is a deadline to bring whatever, sign up for this thing. You didn't sign up, and then they freak out. Well, who are you freaking out about? It's you were managing your schedule poorly.
Right.
I think when it comes to biblically, or in the church world, my concern sometimes too is that sometimes we think the only goal is to keep people or draw people. And sometimes we don't speak out. Yeah, this is the expectation. This is what we believe. This is what the Bible says. but not saying that because we just want to make everybody happy or get as many people. And I think that's part of why we have people sign the membership covenant before they become members. Like, all right, this is what we believe. This is what we're doing. This is who we are. Hopefully they'll then, if they do have a concern, like, hey, you agreed to this. This is where we're at. I think transparency and integrity are just so very important. But I think that's a really key piece of information, that if you have that kind of conversation originally, this is what I promise to do. These are your expectations.
Right.
And that's why contracts and covenants and all those are so important.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever had a situation where there was money, or at least a lot of money involved, but I mean, earlier this summer, I shared this with Annie, but there was a group of us that were going to work on something together, and like it had been planned for months, and we kind of had to do it on a certain set of days because, well, you've got
everybody requested off on
10 schedules working together.
Right.
It doesn't work to just reschedule, right? And then, a couple weeks beforehand, we had the dates all set, and someone basically just dropped out on me. It was like, oh, I'm sorry, and if you can ever use me in the future, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
No.
And that's happened more than once with various things where we had an idea and you were really nice and you're super talented at whatever you do, and you will be a great asset to whatever I'm working on, and you flake out and you're a bad communicator, done.
Yeah.
We're not going to mess with it.
And you're
Someone
not
else
the
will.
problem in that scenario.
Right.
Like, so even if the person's like, oh, they fired me and I don't understand why, and then they go running their mouth. It's like, no.
Yeah.
They won't ever work with me again. No,
Yeah.
you made the choice for whatever reason.
Right. And then to not tell me until the last minute, whatever,
Right. Causing just a complete, and we had a similar situation with our,
Yeah.
with the band too,
Right, yeah.
where that kind of thing happened. And it was like, no,
Yeah.
no, we don't need to, we can just cut
'Cause,
ties.
well-
I'm not the bad guy here though.
Yeah.
You
right.
did the thing.
We'll find someone maybe less talented or less
Yep.
suitable. Because they will learn and get better because they want to be here and they're going
Right.
to communicate and put the effort in. I think it's that simple for me.
In all those cases, I just keep on thinking the clear communication of expectations at the beginning is so important.
Yeah.
So it's not a personal thing. If we started off this relationship based on this agreed upon, I mean, even marriage, right? You have these vows, you have these things you agree upon. And if somebody breaks their end of the deal, so much of the scriptures are like that. When God had a covenant with Israel at Mount Sinai, and when they broke the covenant, there was consequences and broke that relationship. Even when Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees here, it's based on an agreed upon scriptures. It's hard, I think that's when it's not good is, if it's just an opinion, or I just don't like you, or you're just being mean, or whatever, or you didn't clearly communicate those expectations. So that just shows how important that is. So it doesn't get personal.
Well,
it's
and
about
clearly,
the expectations.
Jesus was clearly innocent.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like people didn't like him,
Right.
and he was like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna keep handling my business. TCB, take care of business. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep doing my thing.
Right.
I mean, of course, he had the clearest conscience of all of us, right?
Right.
But like, that's I think an example of like, I mean,
Well, so maybe you can learn something from this. All right, I just need to keep being very clear about expectations when I start these relationships with people and these contracts, and like, this is what I'm willing to do, and I will do my part. This is what I'm asking you to do.
Yeah.
You do your part, and this is all going to work fine. If either of us don't do our part, it's not going to work out.
but then the people who don't hold up their end of the bargain should
Right.
not be the ones to be
Right. Whining,
angry
yeah, exactly.
and backbiting, whatever else. Like that's
Yeah.
like double trouble,
Yes. And that happens a lot. And usually then, all right, that's an unhealthy person, right?
Oh, I agree. And that's
know.
what I keep telling my friend too. I'm like, yo, like that person doesn't get to define you as the bad guy. Like
Right.
in this scenario, like you
Yeah.
don't get to be defined as the bad guy by this person who has broken the expectations and is gossiping and
Right.
running his mouth and trying to go over your head. Like,
I think in the end, though, like, in the end, what people want is someone with clear expectations who gets the job done. So, in the case you're talking about, like, if he is going to keep doing good work, like, people are going to hire him and he's going to maybe lose a little business in the short term. But if he's reliable and he's getting the work done, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care how talented you are. If you're like the most amazing, spectacular act, if you don't show up, or, like
Right.
we can't use you if you don't return our calls, that sort of thing.
Right.
To think about it in society and in faith too, I think that's why there's so much fighting right now, is we don't have many agreed upon expectations or morals or ideas or worldviews.
Interesting.
And then we just make personal attacks and we just don't like people, or you did.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, here's the standard of morality, of human rights, of whatever it is, we don't have that anymore. We don't have any unified set of morals, and so it's a lot of power struggle and it's a lot of backbiting. But if we can't establish those, man, we can do a lot of work together, and it shows who you can work with. If you don't want to, if you don't want to follow these expectations, if we can't agree upon this, well, we can't partner.
Right.
There's a lot of talk about being unified. Well, you have to unify around common principles or a common agreement. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to be unified with people. We can't just be unified because we want to be together. Like, you have to have something that you unify around. So, yeah, that's tough. And back to my point too, if this is the kind of person who is gossiping or blah, 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 like, do you want that person as your customer anyways, right? And do you really want to keep working with somebody who kind of responds like that? Is there always going to be an endless amount of things that you have to mold yourself to fit their needs, and it's not going to be, it's going to be a,
Well,
challenging
Annie and I were
relationship.
just saying this the other day too. Like, people say that they won't remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Sure.
And it's that thing where it's like, I got to call that person. Like, every time there's something that comes up,
Right.
My example was, if I'm busy and I don't want to talk to people, I just wear headphones, even if I'm not playing any music, because then when you come up to talk to me, you say my name once. I hear the first time, but I don't look at you. You say my name 3 times. Finally, pull back one ear. Yeah, what is it? And the point is, then
You're
you
so
start.
dismissive.
Then it starts to sink into your head, like, oh, I
Matt
should go
doesn't-
ask Matt. Oh no, every time it's such a hassle. Maybe I won't do it. And I'm just hoping that sinks in for people.
Yeah. Make sure it's a very visible sign.
Yeah,
Don't talk to me.
right. There's a lot of
And then you feel uncomfortable.
nonverbal
Right.
communication.
And you're
Yeah.
making
I'm
that
really
very
good
clear.
at it.
Yeah. You're training the whole staff
Yeah.
to give you your space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's great.
How's
When
that
I-
working out for
When
you?
I see you with headphones, I'm going to come up and just snap them on your head. Like, it's going to have the opposite effect. Now that I know your plan.
Oh my goodness. What?
No, I don't.
I think my son does that. He can hear me just fine.
Oh, 100%.
He's putting these things on.
So, and to be fair, actually, like, a lot of my headphones are like noise canceling. So
Sure.
sometimes I really can't hear you, but no, that's
and
not,
you don't want to.
and I don't.
Yeah.
That's only half true. But my point is, like, when you have to talk to somebody, and every time you're like, oh, this is going to be an ordeal. Like, every time I got to go ask them to fix something, they always make it it's that kind of thing where that kind of ruins the relationship. It's like you don't even have you don't even have to have a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's going to pull two people apart.
This all takes wisdom. I think that's why there's the book of Proverbs in the Bible, and so much is this interpersonal. There's 2 proverbs that are next to each other. One says, rebuke a fool or he will continue in his folly. Don't rebuke a fool or you will, join in his folly, something like that. And this idea, like, they say 2 opposite things and they're right next to each other. And the idea is sometimes you should rebuke a fool because they need to know they were being stupid. And sometimes you just got to let it go because you don't even want to give any ammunition to somebody who's foolish. So all these things take really high emotional intelligence and discernment. And they're kind of case by case. But especially if you have clear expectations, I think that can solve so many problems. Here's what the expectation. You broke it. We got to move on. Yeah. I don't think I always establish those right away, and I think that's probably where a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
the-
I have a problem with that sometimes.
so because then it's just opinion, or then you don't like something, or
So I thought you said, it's like, I did say that, but you should have known that's not what I meant.
yeah. If you can, we did that with our men's mentoring. We have them sign a covenant, like this is what our expectations are. And it does seem to help people rate, when they stop showing up or they don't do their part, you say, hey, you said you were going to do this. This is it. So, yeah.
Right. And when I was doing HR also, we would, every new employee got an orientation. Mm-hmm. I was like, here's how we do things.
Yeah.
Here are the rules.
Right.
Here's what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you step out of line, because it's very objective.
Yes.
There's very little room for, interpretation
And then you don't get personal, right?
Right,
It's not.
right.
It's nothing personal.
It's not me. It's the book. The handbook says so. It's not.
Right.
Hey, not me, guy. The handbook.
Right.
Yeah.
We went over this.
Right. Yeah, and I think that just keeps, and it's also really important. I think as an employee, or I'm thinking myself as a student, I want to know what the expectations are. What do I have to do? What am I supposed to really be focusing on? And that's really important.
Right.
So.
When are things due? When are
Right.
Right.
And then same thing with I think here at a staff, we want to know, like, all right, what is our goal as a church? What is the parts we're supposed to be playing? And that's a moving target always, but we have to continue to make that a clear expectation. Yeah. So Jesus did it best, though. I mean, yeah, man, there are times where you have to speak up and say something, and just because you offended somebody doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't make you the bad guy.
And
Right.
they might just be and the thing I always come back to is they might just be upset in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if, no matter how many times, like, you rehearse that tough conversation and you say, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to say. I know I'm in the right here. I'm going to lay out these arguments. They're still going to get angry.
Right.
And of course they are, because they feel they're under attack. But sometimes you just got to walk away and they're going to cool off. And, okay, I said what I need to say. It's good.
Right.
If
you have I think that can really be a test of the relationship. If you have built trust, you can say harder things to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have that trust, and then it just gets personal, then it's really hard to speak the truth. Yeah. And I also, for me, it's a lot different if my wife is telling me something that I'm doing wrong, or somebody on social media or something like that.
Right,
So
right.
who's actually saying it? Somebody who does have my best interest in mind and wants something better for me. Yeah. The other problem we have, one final thing is, like, I think it's so easy to be offended today. People are so easily offended, and that's going to be a problem I think we're going to continue to struggle with. That
Because
people,
they're not getting their way, or
all that stuff. Yeah.
just entitlement, or
Yeah. And so it's even harder to be in those kind of positions because you don't even know what's going to get somebody ticked off.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good luck, friend, whoever this is.
Yeah. Am I supposed to disclose?
No.
Oh.
Friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Remember, if you would be so kind as to share this with someone who could hear it, we would appreciate that.
If you'd like to get a hold of us here at the Climbing Sycamores podcast, feel free to email bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. bsadler@victoryofthelamb.com. If you like today's intro music, it's been brought to you by Andrew Lynch's song, My Name, Hello.